we want to say thank you for coming to this meeting. This is a start of what's going to grow most likely to be a town-wide evaluation, assessment, and planning for multitudes of emergencies and disasters that could happen to us. We're focusing tonight a lot of our effort on the Raymond Cape because it's kind of where we started, and I want to go back and give you a little briefing on the whole thing. But Peter Morgan years ago called up and said, we kind of have a problem out on the end of the Cape. There's a long road in, long road out. There's narrow roads off from it, and there's a lot of woods. This could be bad. We agreed, we started working together with the Forest Service. We did, I think it was 200. 200 was it? I think surveys of different properties within the town over that next year, including the Raymond Cape, and those maps are on that petition wall behind everybody, behind John Bisnet. And so it told a good story of the different spots in our town and the risk we have in one. We just revisited that again yesterday with a totally different set of software and parameters and plugged in a bunch of data, and we'll show you that report a little later. We have a panel of some experts up here that was assembled for a specific reason. That panel is going to grow in the future. We'll need public works, we'll need police, we're going to need communication for residents, and so it's going to grow, and I want to make that very clear. But tonight we're focusing on the fire aspect, and hey, why not? Because we're in a drought, and this is a high-risk area. So what I want to do real quick is kind of shout out maybe 4, 5, 6, 7, even 10 ideas. We'll write them down real quick, and then we'll make sure that those are addressed in the PowerPoint. And we'll move forward from there.
This is sausage and beer cheese with potatoes.
Somebody's talking.
Somebody on the phone.
Somebody's on the phone. All right, there we go. We'll have to mute everybody at home, please. Thank you. All right, so again, welcome. Anything anybody wants to address before we start, and then we'll do Q&A after we have our presentation as well.
Brush piles.
Brush piles.
Thank you.
My marker is really not that good, sorry. Anything else?
New one? New marker?
Oh, yes, you got one. Yes. So I couldn't see it, blinded by the light here. Anyways, anything else?
Dead wood.
Okay, the dead wood, the fuels. So we'll talk about that. We'll broaden it to fuel. Thank you. It's not that good. Sorry.
Wood ash disposal?
We can talk about that. Yeah.
How about escape routes?
Escape routes. Wider. And it's not agreed on spelling for me, sorry. And my handwriting is horrible, so. All right, escape, ingress, egress is really what we're talking about.
Bruce, we're here for communication, but I think that should be on the list.
Thank you. Comms, absolutely. We have people for all these so far, so.
When wires come down.
When wires come down. I'm just gonna put CMP. Perfect, we know what that is, right? Perfect. Anything else? And then we'll get on to the next piece of the program, but I think you have to find every one of these will be addressed. And I want to make sure we do get them, so. About mutual support from other fire departments. Okay, I can talk about that. Should put MA from mutual aid. Definitely can talk about that. There we go. I'm running out of room, but how about we call that personal safety? Yeah, how about that? People safety. Resilience. Yeah, my writing gets worse as it goes on. All right, so we'll kind of go from there. Hang on, I'm gonna move this over.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna run you over. No, I hold. You have to hold that for the rest of the night. Yeah, perfect. All right. All right. So a little bit about Raymond Fire and Rescue Department, then I'm gonna have John jump in for a moment. Raymond Fire and Rescue Department operates out of this station and the station on the other end of town. This is the only staffed fire station. We have 12 full-time staff. and 2 full-time chief officers, an admin assistant, and the rest of the folks are on call to respond. So you can't count on someone who's on call, I guess, the volunteer, if you will, to always be around. So if we have 10 of them, you'll likely see 1 or 2 people who show up because they have lives, jobs, places to be, and they're not on shift being paid to be here. So you're going to get that duty crew. We operate 2 engine companies. We operate 2 ambulances, 2 tank trucks, and 2 boats, basically, in a nutshell. That's kind of it, and a little forestry. We have other apparatus on order, including a ladder truck. We're going to talk about that when it comes to escape and egress or ingress, and some kind of tactics you guys can do to help us, to help you. We can do a quick introduction around the plan. Okay.
You're gonna say 4 shifts, 12 people.
Yes, there's 4 shifts for 12 people. So you have 3 people on a shift and 1 per diem on a shift. So there's really 4 people on a crew. Now, let me say this because we need to have that understanding. An ambulance call goes out right now, and that takes 2 people minimally. So now we're down to 2. Second ambulance call goes out, which takes 2. Now we have 0, and that takes 3 hours, roughly. Start of the call to the end of the call when they're back in. So there are times when there's nobody left. Important when we talk about aid and mutual aid because everybody's doing the same exact thing. So I will get more into that in a few minutes, but I forgot something critical. Straight down the hallway is the bathroom. There's another bathroom in the admin office, which is the blue painted room just in front of it if you need. If the fire alarms go off, we will go out the front door or this back door over here beside the soda machine. Divide up, they go outside and assemble out there. Thank you, and we hope it doesn't. If the call goes out, it's going to get very loud over the overhead speaker, and half of us, or maybe all of us, will leave suddenly. That's what we can expect. So hopefully it doesn't happen at full stop. So, John, do you want to take the next? Yeah, actually, let's do the introduction around the table. Yeah, let's do that. Yeah, I've already done myself, so let's start here with Ken.
Oh, good evening. I'm Kent Nelson, Forest Ranger Specialist with the Maine Forest Service. I've been associated with some of the folks around here for about 6-7 years. I'm based out of state headquarters in Augusta. Pleasure to be here.
Cliff Small, both rescue and fire department have been here for, I don't know, 50 years.
That all?
Dennis Morse, selectman, and was former chief here and member for 12 years.
John Fasella, I'm a member of the fire department, but these days, I do fire prevention and I'm assistant fire inspector.
My name is Michael Durkin. I'm the emergency manager for Cumberland County. So Pete Tupper is the emergency manager for Town of Raymond, and our job at the county is to support the emergency manager of all the towns.
My name is Fred LaMontagne. I'm a senior manager in emergency management for Central Maine Power. I have 2 roles: planning for emergencies, much like Michael does, but during a storm, I work the planning section in terms of securing resources and helping to plan for the restoration effort in Gray Sky.
I'm Brad McCurtain, 40-year resident out in Raymond Cape. And don't let anyone ever say no to you and accept that. You got to keep pushing forward, and that's why you're all here tonight, is because I was relentless in saying we've got to have this meeting. So thank you all for being here.
Nate Whalen, Water Resource Specialist for the Pullman Water District.
And Bill ought to be introduced. He's a video guy. If everything goes wrong, that's the guy you're talking to.
He's the reason why it's working. So thank you very much, Bill. Let me grab my. I'm going to let John take over for.
Okay, good evening. How's everybody doing? Can you hear me okay? Yeah. So my name is John Fasella. I've been on this department about 12 or 13 years. I don't know anymore. But there's one thing in my background that's applicable here, and that is that I spent about 10 years in New Orleans during right after Hurricane Katrina. And I was not in a public safety capacity, but I saw the devastation. So we just did the introductions. You've met the panelists. So the hazard process, if you go and look online, you will find, without exaggeration, hundreds of documents telling you how to do this stuff. But I'm a kind of simplistic guy, and I like to boil things down. So as far as I'm concerned, the hazard planning process is something like what I put up here. You take a look at the possible hazards, and we're going to be talking about mainly one today. You estimate the probability of occurrence, and I want to emphasize the word estimate. You prioritize planning on those hazards that are most concerning, and then you determine and implement some preventive actions because you don't want it to happen, so you want to try to prevent it. And then you talk about mitigation actions, and then you write some of this down and you distribute it. And the gentleman over here said communication, and that's one of the important things that we hope will come out of this meeting. Possible hazards in Raymond. There's a booklet that I have up here. I just want to show you it. It's downloadable. It's a FEMA booklet. It's very good because it's not real long. It's 24 pages, and it covers a lot of hazards, a few more than are listed there. If you picked up the black and white 2 pages, 4 sides, I have the URL you can go to download this. They also have a children's version, one for smaller children, younger children. This one is for 8 to 11-year-olds. So these are resources that you could use with your children, your grandchildren, and so forth. So I took out of that booklet 14 hazards listed in there that seemed applicable to Raymond. I didn't put down every one, but you can see there's a lot of different hazards. So we can't possibly cover anything but one hazard today, and that's what we're going to do. We're going to cover wildfires. We'll focus on the Cape, and of course, you all know there's one way in and one way out. There are some other roads around here that have that problem, but none of them are 6 miles long. Terms, wildland fire. What is a wildland fire? It's unplanned, uncontrolled vegetation burning. Interface fire, what is that? That is where the fire interfaces between the woods area and structures. And that creates what we call the wildland-urban interface, a strange term, which really means you got woods on one side, you got buildings on the other side, and what happens if the woods catch fire? Or vice versa. What happens if the building catches fire and it spreads to the woods? Then what? It's not new, this problem in Maine. In 1947, approximately a third of the state completely burned down. And in those days, the fire departments were all volunteer. They were relatively small. The state was more sparsely populated than it is today. And they were bringing in resources from around New England. But unfortunately, a lot of devastation was created. A lot of people burned out of their homes and businesses. It was a terrible thing. What happened? Well, basically, drought conditions, just like we have now. So talking about wildfires on the Cape Road, there's a few things that you have to think about, you as citizens of the Cape Road. One is, do you self-evacuate or do you shelter in place? That's a tough decision. It's not obvious what the answer is. Additional factors, road blockage because of an accident. We seem to have a lot of accidents lately in Raymond. I don't know why. Windstorm, trees and poles down, and prolonged power outages. 2017, I was the last house in Raymond to get power. Needless to say, I have a generator now. But all of these things resolve to one simple fact. There's just one way in and one way out with the Cape Road. So the chief mentioned the resources that we have. If there's an area-wide disaster, we are going to be very busy in this small department triaging, doing what we think is the most important thing to do at that moment. It may not be going down the Cape Road because there's a little garden fire in somebody's house. We may not be able to do that. The other problem that you have to realize is that if this is an area-wide disaster and other departments are handling similar calls, they don't have the resources. Most of the towns around here are departments that are roughly our size or smaller, and they can't staff round the clock necessarily. They don't have a lot of engines and tankers. Wyndham is an exception. It's a much bigger department. But the point is, if this is an area-wide issue, then our mutual aid departments are not going to be much help. If it's an issue localized to Raymond, absolutely, we can invoke mutual aid. Okay. Yep, there we go. Okay. So we've looked briefly at our fire department. Let's look at you all as citizens. Scores of households. Anybody know how many households there are on the Cape? Over 500. Okay, I just got that.
Including Fry.
Okay, didn't know that.
Does that include Fry Island?
No.
Does that include Fry Island?
Just the Cape.
But that's a good point, Tom, because if it's the summertime or late spring or early fall, there's residents on the island that is going to create additional havoc, and especially for them because they are dependent on a ferry.
So that doesn't include Fire Island.
It does not. The 500 number does not include fire.
And that's rounded up, rounded down. It's approximation, but it's very close.
Well,
And that's household, not people. Yes. So if the average household is 3-ish, 4-ish, 5-ish, many vehicles, multiple leaders, unless you form some sort of ad hoc organization yourselves, there's going to be people, perhaps fighting for power, for control, and that's never a good thing, which is why fire departments and law enforcement, we're paramilitary. That means we got a hierarchy. You don't argue with the chief, you don't argue with the lieutenant. Okay, mostly untrained and unequipped today. That could change, and hopefully it will. You have to self-prioritize what you're going to do, and you have to self-resource. In other words, you have to find the resources to help yourselves because we may not be able to get to you. Recent wildfires. This one in May of last year on Little Sebago Lake was one of the more recent ones, but one of the ones that I really wanted to highlight because if you look carefully at the resources, how many fire departments came here? Did people get injured? Yes. How many homes were burned? Yes. Boats? Yes. Cars? Yes. And this was a wildfire that got out of control and spread to other residences and other properties. The contributing causes were primarily pine needles and twigs, stuff that you can clean up on your own property. But if you don't, there's going to be rapid fire spread. And in the fire, a propane tank caught on fire as well. That was not the cause. But because the flames reached the propane tank and we were unable to cool it enough, it caught on fire. Multiple times. Multiple tanks. Okay, I didn't go to that call. I'm not going to go through all of these, but the point really is that we've had a lot of fires in the last 10 or 15 years here in Raymond. Some more ones. Thomas Pond, I remember well. We had multiple buildings in that one. This is, I didn't change that, did I? Yeah, yeah, we changed the slides, but we're using the old version. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Addison, Maine. I want you to look carefully. The fire origin was a barn. But notice the barn is close to woods and the house is close to woods and the house siding is steaming. So here you have the perfect example of the woodland urban interface, right? It started in a structure, caught to the woods, and it might catch to that house. This thing is not working. Others in Kennebunk, Auburn, New Hampshire. This is the world's slowest clicker. Prevention. This is the important part. What you can do tomorrow to help mitigate some of this stuff. So I think our forest fire ranger is going to go into this in more detail, but there are basically now 3 levels of cleaning. What you do from 0 to 5 feet, what you do out to 30 feet, and what you do to 100 feet. And the more that you can clear up, the better you're going to be. In Butte County, California, they had a wildfire called the Park Fires, and 89% of the homes that cleared a defensible space were saved. And we know how bad wildfires can be in California. So this stuff works.
Been shunned in years past, but like brought up a good point in California. California's fire, they were a tinderbox, okay? And for the last 10, 15 years, we've been shunned from burning for fear of forest fires. So are you guys gonna start promoting burning again and start getting all this stuff under control?
We will when the fire danger is lower than it is. Right now it's extreme. So we can't allow fire burning, but it's a good question and we can cover it a little more thoroughly in a few minutes. I want to keep moving because it's not that I don't want to take questions. I want to get through this material and then we're going to have a lot of time for question and answer. So if you got a question, please just hold it. So clear around your homes. Ladder fuels. What's a ladder fuel? It's just what it sounds like. There's low-lying stuff that catches fire, and then there are branches where it catches those branches because the heat is rising, and then larger branches, and pretty soon it gets to the very top of the tree, and you have what's called a crown fire. If possible, remove pine trees close to your homes. I would say that if you're shoreline, and I live on a shore, I had to work with code enforcement, but I was able to take down trees. It all depends on what you're trying to do and why you're trying to do it. So you got to talk to them. Another thing that you can do is put metal mesh over attic vents and soffit vents to prevent embers from coming in, because as the wind picks up and blows these embers, it can catch your house on fire. And especially if it goes inside one of those vents, you won't know it until it's too late. Now, house construction is a big feature. I'm not even mentioning it because if you've got shake shingles, you're probably not going to want to change them. But they are a huge contribution to fires. Have a water source, have an emergency power generator, store some canned food and water, have a go bag. There's lots of online stuff. Everybody's got a different view of what a go bag is. Have a phone list of neighbors and family. And if you have to evacuate, consider going with others. Don't necessarily drive your own car, because if you do, you're going to create traffic congestion. And we might be trying to get in while you're trying to get out. So consider having a phone tree or working with your neighbors on that. We have talked about trained traffic wardens, and that's something that you residents on the Cape could organize yourselves. We could help you get the training, the vests, and things like that. Make sure that your driveway has enough room for both getting in and getting out. And if possible, have some pass-by places so that if we're trying to get into your property and you're trying to get out, we can pass each other. Online burning permits are required for any fire over 3 feet by 3 feet, whether it's a campfire or you're burning brush and things like that. There's an online resource to do it. I've done it many times. It's easy to do. If you picked up the black and white papers, yeah, I give you the URL for that. However, even small campfires, less than 3 by 3, can be banned by the local fire chief because of high fire danger conditions. And one other thing that's not exactly in line with all of this, but it's been a problem, is if you have an emergency, if you think it's an emergency, please dial only one number, 911. We have had people calling in on the business line, and what they don't understand is that business line may or may not be answered. That 911 number is answered in Windham. For all of Cumberland County, it's manned 24/7 by 365. They have tape recorders going. Everything is recorded. If you call any other number for an emergency, it's highly likely we will not respond, and you'll be waiting there for someone that's never going to come. So please use 911. I'm almost finished. Fire Class Day ratings. Our weather station is in Lyman. Every day there's a new weather map. That URL will get you to that weather map. That's also in the paperwork. I suggest you get a NOAA weather radio. They're about $50 to $70. I've got one of my own. Battery backup. Then you know what the weather is like and whether a storm is coming or whatever. Whoops. Yeah, I just want to back up. And then this is government warnings. There's a lot of different government warnings. I've listed some of them here, but they will keep you informed. So I'm going to turn it back over to Chief Tupper, and we're going to start working with question and answer in the panels, right?
So I'm just going to turn the mic over. If you want to go back to that one, please, if you could. The back one.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if you hear me. All right. I'm actually going to let the guy who knows all about these notifications kind of talk about these notifications.
Hey.
Absolutely. Thank you for the time, and thanks everybody for being together. Seriously, getting together in one room, as crazy it sounds, is one of the most important things you can do to start this process. So as far as warnings, there are two essential systems that we use within Cumberland County to notify you of a potential disaster. The first is up here. It's called Code Red. What Code Red is, it's at that dispatch center that he mentioned earlier, and Code Red will call registered landlines within a specific geographic area. So you've got the phone in your kitchen, it will make that ring, the dispatcher records a message, and it tells you the message. It's a very straightforward, very simple technology. The nice thing is they can send that straight from that dispatch center in Windham, so it's very quick. The other main system we're going to talk about is what's called the iPause system. That's a similar system, except that one will call a cell phone within a certain geographic area. Has anybody ever gotten an Amber Alert? Same thing, very, very similar. Same program, different bureaucracy behind it, but I won't bother getting into that. So what that would be, it pops right up on your screen like that. Quick show of hands, who has a landline in their phone? Who has only a cell phone? That's what we're seeing more and more of. So we're starting to see now, a lot of the times when this goes out as well. We're starting to send both of those at the same time because we're realizing this is not reaching everybody, right? This is great for businesses because they often have landlines. A place like you're talking about, we're going to rely a lot on this too. Now, with this, the person who would actually order this would be the chief. In any sort of disaster. It doesn't necessarily have to be him if he's on vacation. It's going to be whoever is in charge of managing that disaster. Whoever the senior firefighter or sheriff's officer or whoever it happens to be on that event is, who goes, we got to evacuate this area. And they notify dispatch to do this, and dispatch contacts me, and then we draft a message. We figure out exactly where it needs to get evacuated, and then we send that message. It's pretty straightforward. We work through the state, and the state they're actually the ones who push the button. With this, we can geolocate it. So you could do just the northern half if you wanted. You could do just the southern half. You could do just the southwest tip of Fry Island. You could set it up however you want. You can do the north side of the street or the south side, where we have a lot of variability in how we can send these. What we're going to do when we send it is we're going to tell you where the problem is. Even though it's geofenced, you might occasionally, there's a little bit of bleed over sometimes. So we're still going to say, Raymond Cape from this road south. So you'll know exactly if it's you or not. We're going to tell you what the problem is, right? Police activity in the area, wildfire incoming, tornado watch, whatever it is. And we're going to tell you what to do. We're going to give you a suggested action, right? Evacuate immediately. shelter in your home, close all the doors, windows, whatever it is. We're going to try to tell you some directions. The next thing we're going to try to give in there is, for more information, call this number, go to this website, do whatever it is to get more details for it. Sometimes, depending on the situation, if it's something like police activity, there aren't really details we can give you. So it's going to be details to follow, in which case, once the emergency is over, we're going to send out a second one of those alerts. Now, an interesting thing with the way this iPause system works is that if Chief sends that out for the whole Cape and I'm just driving and I'm just going to Fry Island, I have no idea what's going on, right? I'm driving through Wyndham, coming up to my summer house, no idea what's going on. No idea that he shut the whole place down and that he's trying to evacuate it. As soon as I cross into that area, my phone's going to go off and I'm going to get that message. So it's not a one time and you missed it sort of thing. It'll keep going for 2 hours. Right? We want it for more, we'll get it for more than 2 hours. We want to end it early, we can end it early. So we have a lot of flexibility with that system and how it's used. The only limitations on it are that it has to be a real emergency, a life or death scenario, right? So no trash pickup will be a day late this month. Nope. None of that sort of stuff, right? So if you get one of these alerts, it's a serious thing and it has to be taken seriously, right? They don't do them just for fun. So when we send them out, did anybody get the one that went a couple of weeks ago to the entire state of Maine? Sorry. It's not my fault, but sorry. I'm still sorry nonetheless. Perfect example. We've sent 3 of these in the past month, right? So this is becoming a more and more common thing. You will start to see these more and more often. Any questions about the system or how it works or when we use? Yeah.
Well, I'm wondering, I have an Atlanta area code.
Mhm.
How does it know to call me?
If your cell phone is in this area, so I have a Colorado area code. If your cell phone is in this area, it will ping you. It doesn't care if you have a house here. It doesn't care if you're a tourist. It doesn't matter. So it knows the area and it sends the message straight to your phone. It bounces off the tower to every cell phone in the area that Chief identifies. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep. So you can turn them off. Our hope is that because we don't send too many of them, that people won't get really fatigued with them and start turning it off. So if you're going, oh, geez, I don't even know if it's on or off, check, but it's probably on. And if you got the one going to the entire state a couple of weeks ago, it's on. Other questions? Yeah.
Well, I wanted to ask you about that one a couple months ago or whenever it was. It seemed like there was about a 2-hour delay between the time the active shooter was active and when people got notice of that. Is that typical or?
It varies. It kind of depends. Typically with iPause messages, the actual messaging comes very easily, right? We know what the situation is. What we're usually waiting on is where do you want it sent to? So in a scenario like that, what exactly are they shutting down? Are they telling all of Wyndham to shelter in place? Are they telling Wyndham and they don't know. So a lot of the times you have to have enough of a handle on the situation to know, okay, this is the area we need to shelter in place. And that can be kind of the delay. Well, in the statewide, that was not meant to go statewide. That was a technical glitch on the far side of the process. So the area that was identified for that was kind of from the east side of the lake to a ways east of the Dunkin' Donuts and the woods behind the Dunkin' Donuts there. It kind of covered that whole area. So it was maybe a few square miles, give or take, of mostly forest.
That area got notice on a timely basis.
Mm-hmm.
The red, okay.
Yeah. So the initial alert went to the entire state. And then a second alert went out only to that area, telling them, hey, the shelter in place has been lifted. The problem is over. You can leave your homes now. Yeah. Other questions? Yeah.
Yeah, as far as the involvement of Maine public and being basically, I think the only notification on media that's statewide, is that continuing or are they running into funding issues?
No, I haven't heard anything about it. Yeah, honestly, I don't know. Yeah, but I know that wouldn't be something that impacts iPause. Different systems. Yeah.
My understanding is they're still providing it, even though there aren't really the federal funds going in right now.
Yeah.
But that's always in jeopardy because if the state can't fund it, my understanding is it's going to go away.
The state funding, at least, and again, I think we might be talking about different things. The state funding for IPAWS, the state just hired an IPAWS coordinator. So the state's investing significant funding in expanding the use of IPAWS to ensure people are trained to properly use it. Yeah.
In public radio.
Right. That's a little different. Yep. That one I'm not too sure about. Yeah. Other questions on communications? Okay. I'll be here.
We'll have more, I'm sure, in the end of things. Yes, thank you very much for that explanation. I'd like to have Kent Nelson, Maine First Service, kind of go over what we did the other day, which was a survey that we put together to update the one we had done years ago. And I think if you grab some of the handouts out in the hallway, these were out there. And if not, I can grab a bunch and try to bring them in for you. But I'm going to turn it over. He's the guy who knows what he's talking about. Well,
We'll see about that. Well, how's everyone doing so far? Everyone seems to be awake and alert, and there are some refreshments back there if you need some coffee or anything. Like Chief Tupper said, I was here about 6-7 years ago, and we did what we call a community wildfire protection plan for the town of Raymond. And that, in short, is a plan that identifies wildfire risk and prioritizes it, and then makes specific recommendations for prevention and mitigation. So we did the community wildfire protection plan. That's a lot of words, so I'm just going to call it the fire plan. We did that to the best of our ability at the time, but in the last 6 years, there's been a lot of changes. So what we decided to do last night was do a quick down and dirty, enter the data from the risk assessments that we conducted 6 years ago into a new program, which is called the Wildfire Risk Assessment Portal. And this is, you have some access to it as a citizen, but I have a special password so I can go in and manipulate stuff. But getting to the results of it, if you have this document, I don't know if you can see it, but it says Raymond Neck on the top, Community Wildfire Risk Assessment. So what we did was we took the data from the 55 home risk assessments that we did. And I don't mean we actually plugged it in. These two systems weren't compatible, but we discussed it. We went through all these questions and we decided we were kind of going to come up with a common denominator of what we saw. And I will say this, I think you folks already know this. Chief Tupper knows this town pretty well. You know, there was no, I mean, he had his screen up there, Google Earth, and I was going through my program. We got this done in about an hour. But just to start off at the top, the total assessed rating is high risk of wildfire. And what that means is a lot of structures, 500 structures on, and we did cut it off right at 302, right? So this is not the entire town. This is what you guys call the Cape, right? So that's 3,000 acres, 500 homes. That's a lot of structures in a forested area. No surprise, everyone knows that. So the suppression rating is extreme. It's difficult based on all these factors, and I'll try to go over them briefly. But you've heard a lot already, the limited resources, the access, stuff like that. And then the surrounding environment, extreme. And one reason that it came up to extreme is that there's a lot of softwood. And softwood tends to burn much more rapidly than hardwoods. I've had people, when I say I'm going to do a home risk assessment, and they go, oh, I have this tree that I'm so worried about because of fire, and it's a maple tree that's leaning over their roof. And I don't mean to make fun, but maple trees don't ignite nearly as easily as a softwood, which is like a spruce, a fir, hemlock, pine, stuff like that. Now, that leaning tree might be a hazard to the roof, but it's not a fire hazard. So I enjoy teaching people how to make their homes safer from wildfire. So I'll just go through this real quick. One thing I did want to point out was on page 3, we made some recommendations about improving driveway accessibility. NFPA recommends 12 to 15 feet wide and 13.5 feet high. That's a lot of clearing. And some of you folks have quite long driveways, right? I mean, that may be a little bit of time and money and effort to do that. A car goes through pretty easy, but if
Yeah.
response vehicle, fire truck, tries to get down there. I'll say it, they may not go. They have to, what's the best way to say it? Like, if you can't put your firefighters at risk to go down a half-mile long road if it's thrown over like that. Yeah. And that's something that's not that hard to fix, right? It's gonna, you could cut it. It may take a couple of weeks, or I don't know how much money, and it will grow back in 5-6 years. We're sort of blessed and cursed here in Maine. Trees grow back pretty fast. So that's one thing that can be done. And also we talked about maybe possibly installing another dry hydrant on the Cape somewhere, where we have a grant program that could help with that.
That's a good point. We have a lot of dry hydrants that have been neglected for years.
Yeah.
The fire danger you guys are assessing right now is as danger it is. Why are all these dry hydrants going to be put top priority to get them up and working?
I'll let you finish and we'll address it.
Okay. Yeah. Because I mean, our program doesn't pay for rebuilding old ones. It's only installing new ones. So that's a little bit out of my scope. But I don't want to go through all this thing, but I was very pleased with how it kind of addressed some of the issues. And obviously, there's a lot of land still that is considered could be developed on the Cape. Now, it's probably not on the water, but there's some interior lands. And as those get built or sold off, they're going to need more water for fire suppression. So that ties into the dry hydrants. And I think Chief said that they're requiring interior sprinklers for structures like that. And that's a good thing, but that's not going to help you much from wildland fires. And so there's a lot of recommendations that get into the different zones that John talked about a little bit here, the 0 to 5 feet. They've done studies, and they found out that a lot of these homes in these western fires ignite from embers. It's not a wave of fire that goes across the landscape. It's maybe a structure fire that gets going fully engulfed and starts throwing embers downwind. And if you're not home and you have needles and leaves, what we call fine fuels, near your deck or near your structure, and you have cedar shake shingles, those will ignite pretty easily. But within 0 to 5 is where it's doing it. So if you just swept that stuff out 2-3 times during the growing season, that could prevent a home ignition. There's a lot more you can do, but I'm just trying to give the point that you don't need 24 workers and to spend thousands and thousands of dollars to reduce the risk of home ignition. There's a lot you can do. And I think that's probably where I'll leave it for now.
Yeah,
I don't want to take too much time, but I will pass this to you. And
Message is that there really is so many things that can be done and very reasonably and cheaply. Overall, it's really some effort and some hard work that gets us there. With the programs that we've done on the Cape already, and with other road associations, they've made marked differences in the resiliency of their properties. Stuff that we can't do, obviously. We can't get to everybody's house and do, their work for them. That's not what we do. However, you can do it, and it really doesn't take a whole lot of time. Brad, you had something you wanted to add?
Can I ask a question, Chief?
Yeah, you can in one moment. Yes.
Give us those dimensions again that you wanted.
Yes, so actually it was what, 14?
12 to 15 feet wide, 13 and a half high.
And 13 and a half feet high. And that allows a truck to get through. Just the other day, we were on a driveway, we actually damaged the truck trying to get to a home on the Cape. Because the tree branches are low and it snags equipment on the side of the truck, breaks lighting and stuff like that. So that is a real problem for us. And I'm not blaming the Cape, it's everywhere, but that's where we were, ironically. And here we are chatting about Raymond Cape. So just something to think about. It's an easy fix. And yes, your driveways are also part of that roadway. And we always say we build these beautiful, beautiful houses at the end of these, and I'll use the term, it's kind of derogatory, but a goat path. And that's really what it is for a road. And we actually found one the other day. The deputy came back from a call that we went on, and it was a path all the way into the house. There was no driveway. We would have had to drag lines 150 plus feet just to get to the house down this. I mean, and we could do it. We have those lines, but it was just a path through the woods to get to a house. There was no road. So ladder work and everything, you have to lug everything in. So these are real things that we deal with. John mentioned about water supplies, and I want to address that very quickly before we move on to the next section. But neglected is a very strong word to use. It's not neglect. It is the fact that mud ponds fill in. No, they're dry right now. They're dehydrated every year. They dry out. There's no way of really fixing that. It's Mother Nature. So we have our routine ones: Mountain Road, Pond Road. Yeah, I can. Right on the Cape Road dries out to the point where you just can't draft water out of it. There's not enough there to even bother with. And pretty much every year we're seeing that now. If we can get a hydrant like we have at the Cape on the lake at the ferry landing, we're not going to drain Sebago Lake, I hope. That's the theory. We also have one of those up on Panther Pond. We have one on Crescent. So we do have hydrants like that in certain areas. And we've been steering away from the smaller ponds, if you will, just for that reason. And they fill in, they take a lot to maintain, and they go dry because they're not necessarily spring fed, but they're runoff fed. So that's but I agree.
You also have one on the Casco Raymond line that's been there.
Yeah.
That one's not working, and
Correct.
that doesn't get impacted. And
Correct.
goes right there, so you would think that would be one of your priorities.
It is a priority of ours. It is not of our neighbors, and they own it. I've offered to pay half of it.
What's the life for it?
I've offered to pay for half of it, but it's their hydrant, not ours. I can't do anything with it. Can't put a value on it, John. You know that. So, it is at the dam, and Casco owns it, not us. So, yeah. Anyway, that's kind of our headache with that. So looking at some of the details of the materials we've handed out or you could get out front, and a lot of it is how to make your place more resilient. There are chipping programs, at least they used to be. I don't know if they're going to be funded again into the future. It might be iffy with the state budget. I'm not sure. But there are resources out there, and we're hoping that what this study does that we did, this review, allows us to, in identifying all these issues, to be able to put together some grant proposals maybe that will help us out with some of the stuff. If you have an access to the water at your property, that's fairly easy. We have water everywhere, and I have to kind of explain this so everybody understands it. I get told that you got water everywhere. Fry Island's surrounded by it, but Chief, how many places can you get the water off the island? 2. Yeah. Yep. That's it. That's the scary truth of it, is that we don't have access. The embankment's it's a long driveway. That was Fry Island, but we don't have access to a lot of our lakes. You just can't get there. So
about 10 years ago, and I remember just mapping out these 45 different locations on the Raymond Cape Road you could draft along. Still have a copy of that map.
I have a copy of whatever we did. Yeah, there wasn't 45. I guarantee that. And the problem is there's no roads that go right to it. In very rare conditions, does a road go to it. You don't have enough suction hose to get there either. We're limited by science on a lot of this stuff. So, yes.
Need to be right down.
Yeah, we got to be within like 25 feet of the water edge. And the suction hose at that point has to be in deep enough water so we're not pulling sand up. Sand is our enemy. It'll eat the guts of a pump right out. And there's 30, 40,000 and your pump is sitting there useless at that point. So there's a bunch of things we got to look at. Sorry?
What's the depth that you need?
So normally we need a couple feet anyway, at least a couple feet. And we could use a floating strainer on that. But you really want a good solid 2 feet so we don't pull the sand up with it and into the trucks, because every truck will get a dose of that sand. And we've been down that road. It's expensive to fix these things. So those are some of the things that we've got to consider. What I want to do is I think we want to flip one more slide. I want to talk to some of our other panelists real quick. I think we've addressed a lot of these, but maybe not. Brush piles. How do I get rid of brush piles? I recommend and advocate for chipping. Chipping creates a base of moisture content. It holds the moisture. It's used for erosion control. It's good for the gardens. It's good for the earth. We should really look at chipping versus burning. There are some theories on burning being useful. Obviously, fire is a part of life. And fire is a thing that we've used forever. So we're addressing our fuels. We talked about ladder fuels. Oh, ash disposal. Make sure that when we do dispose ashes, they're in a metal container that you let them sit, and then before you dump them out, or as you dump them out, you do it on a mineral soil area and wet them down so that they're not hot still. An ash can live in a bucket, or an ash hod, if you will, for 4 and 5 days. I've actually seen people take their ash bucket next to the wood stove, dump it into a paper bag, put it in the garage, and 3 hours later, and these were 4 days old, and hours later, the house is on fire. From that one ember that was in that just sparked the paper bag and caught the house on fire. So yes, these things in an insulated bed of coals or ash can live for a long time. And yes, sir.
Chips, same as pine needles or wood chips?
So wood chips, well, because they're thicker and bigger pieces, they tend to hold the moisture. The top surface will dry out. That's a fact, and it could catch on fire at some point, but under it holds a lot of moisture. So that's really, we're in a drought. Yeah, we're 10 inches down. So, well, we are talking about that. We're talking about general every day, what you can do to protect yourself. This is kind of an extreme today, so we'll talk about that a little bit for sure. You had a question earlier, and I kind of skipped you. Sorry about that.
Well, I think it's mainly for CMP. I mean, there's so many trees that CMP cuts down and just leaves lying around, including telephone poles. I mean, a number of times I've talked to Nathan and said, I got all these, you just cut them down and just leave them there. I mean, shouldn't there be some protocol that they get rid of these trees after they cut them down?
So, no, it's okay. It's a great question, and there's 2 parts to that. One is the tree itself, right, and the second part is around the poles. So, with the tree itself, there's a lot of decisions that are made before that road is cleared with the town, even with the residents. There's people who want the wood but don't eventually pick up the wood. There's a lot of times the log part of it will be picked up, but typically we take all the brush out of there that we can, that no one really wants. And then if the wood is desirable, it's left by the side of the road for people to take. And typically that's because somebody approaches and says, I want that wood or I don't want that wood. Around the pole itself, when we replace a pole, we don't always own the pole that we're replacing. Everyone remembers back in the days of Verizon and Fairpoint and all those other companies, Consolidated Communications. When we're replacing a pole with CMP, we're not always the owner of the removed pole or the bucked up pole that sits on the side of the road. And that is on Consolidated or whoever owns the pole to come. Typically now it's Consolidated to come and pick up that pole. And there's regulatory pieces around that, and I'm happy to find someone to talk to you more about it, but that's the reason why you see a pole behind a pole with a bunch of stuff that's not taken off it or whatever it might be.
Well, it doesn't happen. Simple as that.
Right.
There's a pole recently that was knocked down, it's still there, and every time you all cut down a tree because it's the way of your power lines, it just lays there. And nobody puts it out in the street who's going to come and get it or anything.
Yeah, if you want to give me the location, I can talk to our foresters and we'll happy to come and take a look at it and see what we can find out, and we'll take care of it, because that's not what we like to do. We like to leave it as clean and pristine as we can when we leave. So if that's the case that you're seeing in a particular area, just, let me know and we can talk about it.
That was good. So I do want to, before we totally go to question and answers, make sure we addressed all this stuff. So Central Maine Power, we know that we have the one way in, one way out, and power lines come down. We have to deal with that. So I'm going to give you kind of an anecdotal story, but true. We had an accident recently down there. A pole came down, and people were walking up to the pole that's laying down with all the primary wires and everything. I mean, they were actually walking up and almost touching the pole. And I got on the PA and just warned everybody, please stay away. I'm sorry, I just don't feel like doing CPR on people. And that's if I can get to you safely. So just don't touch the thing. Stay far away. They are live wires. No line is safe to touch ever. We can't tell you that the breaker tripped. I can't tell you that for sure, because even if I see the physical evidence, it still may be charged because someone's generator is not wired appropriately, and now it's backfeeding everything. And that happens very frequently. And the kind of disregard for the Central Maine Power lines is mind-boggling. I actually pulled up to a scene where power lines were down, and I watched a woman walk up to the power line in the road, pick it up and start coiling it around her arm. It was dead, but she would have been if it was live. She had no way to test it. She just, I'm having a heart attack, you know? And I was like, these people, please don't do that. Please have regard for these lines. We covered the mutual aid and the people in resilience. And I just can't stress enough that our hands will be full in a big emergency if we have a major fire down there, be it a forest fire or what have you. And part of what Brad's concerns were when he came to me were, how are we going to handle and or react to it? Well, part of it is the communications aspect of things, and we'll hone that in a little bit, and you heard some of what can occur. The other piece of it really falls back to you folks. I can't have a firefighter in everybody's yard with a fire truck. It just doesn't work that way. So we're asking out of this group and out of everybody in town, as we have for the last few years, as John and I have gone around to road associations and chatted, is help us out. Take these materials home, learn about the Firewise community program, take from the California fires, and they've adopted now. Butte County has adopted Firewise community as their ordinance. Everything will be built to the standard. You will decorate only to the standard outside, and you will maintain it, and it will be inspected annually or semi-annually. And that's the seriousness that they placed on it. I mean, they burnt the whole city down in hours. So we don't have quite the same scenario as that. We are one way in and out, and I see I'll get right to you. One way in and one way out, but I don't have 40,000 people trying to go at once. We have maybe 2,000 people. So we have a little bit of difference here. So, yes, sir.
Respect the communication.
Yes.
The summer, I have it on the first time.
Right.
A little more cold across the way.
Yeah.
So there's rentals. It was a dry day like this. As far as I was concerned, it wasn't, grandkids, one of those stores, we're not starting fight. But these people over there started fighting.
Right.
One time. I got upset. I drove down to the White Street.
Yes.
And I talked to the people that were here.
Okay.
And they said, well, we'll go out and talk with them.
Yeah.
And they did show up about a half hour later.
Right.
And apparently the people were very nice. They didn't realize. So with respect to realizing, should we, we've got all these people coming from away.
Sure.
Should we have some signs on East Road, here on Hawthorne Road, apartment going out.
Yep.
Talks about fire danger, it's a no burning day.
Yep.
Things like that, because there's not a lot to do.
Well, so one thing you can do though is the state's website, mainburningpermit.gov, and the other one is Maine Fire Danger, will show you the fire danger that particular day. It's in real time that morning. It's formulated. So you'll see that we try to post it every day on our Facebook as well. I know not everybody thinks that, but there is a method of getting the info right off that before we get a sign. Yeah. Yeah, we got to get it.
$4,000 a week. My kids want to have some more.
Yeah, yeah.
In fact, that same one accounts for, like somebody, well, the people that owned it, they took the ambers. And the father says, get rid of the ambers. And kid took them and threw them in the woods. This was about 10, 15 years ago. And I'm sitting there on our side, that's smoke coming off.
Yeah.
And the next thing you know, I saw flames.
Right.
And I tailed across. But again, it takes you guys 15 minutes.
Oh, yeah. Anyway.
To get out to the end of the key.
Right.
And, by then I had a bucket of water, but you guys went and looked at the roots and,
Oh, yes, yeah.
Sure. But those are examples.
So, yeah, exactly. And Deputy, yes.
In town meeting, you can say, hey, we need to have literature.
That when somebody rents a bed and breakfast or they rent a property, there's literature they get that shows them the rules for burning in our community. I mean, that's one way. Use your government the way it's designed. Because I'm quite sure if you went to Dennis in a Tuesday night meeting and say, hey, we got an issue, they're burning all the time, What can we do to make it so they have to have a literature they hand out to a rental to make it a little easier to understand what they have to do? I think that's one way of pursuing it, which.
So who would you go to?
I would go to the select board or the planning committee.
Seems to know.
What we can do is as the ordinances on rentals start developing, is we can be in touch with those folks who are doing the rentals and make sure that they give out the information. There are several renters or rental places now that will actually have in their contract when they can and cannot burn, or if they can and what the conditions must be for the fire pit or things like that. Or they give them a metal fire pit to use and tell them they have to buy their own wood. That kind of deters long-term fires with $4.50 a bundle for 5 pieces of wood. You know, just saying that I don't have that kind of money to burn. Literally, that's what you're doing. So we can work with those people as this ordinance develops, and you're working currently on that rental, short-term rental agreement. That maybe we can get that put in place with that agreement so that we can get better information out to our folks. And that's what it is too. It's that communications piece. You're absolutely right. I don't know who owns the properties, and a lot of them do just simply rent, and that's fine. But
Smoking sign up.
yeah.
Which talks about the fire danger. You know, maybe you only get 20 or 30% of the people.
Yeah.
But that's better than not knowing.
Correct. It is. It is better than not knowing. Yes, sir.
So Chief, that, just an answer to that, tomorrow night at the planning board, they're gonna be reviewing the draft for the short-term rental ordinance. And there's been a lot of discussion on that.
Yeah. All right. So you heard that. That's good. Good to know. Thank you, Peter. Yes.
Is there a specific group that could be paid or volunteered to come to property, like we at Woods, around us and by the water,
Yeah.
and say, take this down, do this or do that? I'm not looking for free, but is it?
Well, we have and can go out. We can't do a lot of them at once, so we can't have 100 calls tomorrow expecting us to come out. But we have gone out to properties and done an assessment on them. And I know the Forest Service, I'm speaking for you, Kent, I don't want to, but you have resources to be able to do that somewhat still with
Yeah,
local.
and you know, you saw the disclaimer on the slideshow, you can't cut within the shoreland zone.
Yes.
But on the sides and away from the water, you know, we all understand, we don't want to recommend clear cutting everything. We live in Maine because we love the trees. Well, you just need to be kind of smart about it. You need to, rather than have a contiguous group of vegetation coming from the forest right up to the back deck, you have little pockets of vegetation with grass in between or rocks in between. Break up the fuel, so to speak, so fire wouldn't travel through the structure or vice versa.
Yeah, that's a key, breaking up that contiguous fuel loading and stuff. So yes, ma'am.
Couldn't you use the marquee out front when the fire danger is very high?
Yeah, and we do have a slide that's rotating through right now, and it says it's high fire danger, and I believe it says permits must be obtained before burning. We've locked the system out despite the state regulates that system. I put a lock on it through the 17th of the month just because I don't think the rain tomorrow is going to affect a whole lot for us. So I have the right to do that, and within our community we have. So it kind of goes back to John's comment of, you know, are we going to promote burning? Well, not right now, for sure. We allow a whole lot of burning. Last year, we issued over 650 burning permits when conditions allowed it. So we do allow a lot of burning to occur to try to mitigate some of the stuff when it's safe. Again, I kind of prefer the chipping because it becomes filtration and erosion control and such. But I understand it. People like to burn their brush too. So yes, sir. Yes.
So what's confusing to me is that this is an enormous public safety issue. Have the fire departments ever gotten together with the local legislators? And this presentation is so enlightening. You would think that if you would gather the politicians together and put some responsibility back on the towns. I mean, it's insane that you can't get a town to pay for half of something that's that dangerous. So what can we do to make this more legislative and Because us sitting here, I mean, we're all gonna do our best, but we're really just kind of a drop of water, considering the bag.
Correct. Would you like to speak to that, or do you have any? I'll bring the mic too, so you can, everybody can have it. I don't want to put you on the spot, but it's hard not to.
At the state level, I mean, there's certain limitations on what can be done at the state level. You know, EMS and things like that, it does get brought up to them and things, but it also gets into funding issues, it gets into enforcement issues and whatnot. So you've always got a multitude of levels that you have to get through, because it's great to have rules, but if you can't enforce them, they didn't mean anything.
Really talking about rules, I'm talking about, I'll just say Casco, but that's what I do. Town of Casco should have some requirements if they're funding. And one of those requirements should require them to, make sure that the roads are safe or have some kind of laws in place that require citizens to do things. And they should take responsibility.
If you're in the shoreline zone, it's your responsibility as a homeowner to maintain your property.
Sure, I am on the shore.
But I mean, I think
I have 1,000 feet on the shore.
But I mean, I think what you're reacting to a little bit is that one comment that's a dry hydrant that Casco won't support, that and things like that. And yeah, that gets into having cooperation between the towns. And I know the fire departments do a lot of cooperation back and forth.
Yeah.
And there's certain things that can be done at the state level, but there's an awful lot that has to be done at the local level, because the state can't come in and put in dry hydrants. The locals do. And it's, I know that Bruce works very well with the fire chief in Casco and Naples and things like that. And so it's a function of their chief getting in front of their select board too, to say, listen, we need to have that. So it's, it's incumbent on people to keep the things elevated and keep talking about it so that it gets through that way.
You take the fire departments, we get together and put some of this pressure on.
Brought the public together so we can talk about it now and work together as residents to understand our responsibilities as residents to the Cape, to actually participate in maintaining the properties. He's using you all as the voice because there is no government policy procedure that change this. This is an individual choice, and there's thousands of people on the Cape, they get to choose differently than you. And take care of their property differently than everybody else. So what you're trying to do is to say, hey, we have a Cape, and everybody that lives on the Cape is on the shoreline. So you are under the shoreline zoning rules, which says if the rocks are falling in the lake, it's your responsibility as the property owner to hire a certified contractor to come in and fix it, so the stuff doesn't fall in, or the trees don't fall in, or whatever's going on your property, because it's different at your house and it is at his house.
Eric, you're absolutely correct, and this is really what this group is now.
But I think with your capabilities and other fire chiefs,
yes,
to get in legislatures or local councilmen and bring the rest of us into those meetings.
Right. Well, this is the start.
Have that ability to pull together.
This is going to grow as the goal. It's not just Raymond Cape. I mean, we have Thomas Pond, Harris. Yeah, that's right. You were the gentleman from Thomas Pond. So we have the shores and the terrace, and I've got other roads on the other end of town that are miles long and up and down hills, and they're literally dirt roads that are 1 lane wide, but they serve 100 homes or more on a lake, and they're higher risk because of that access issue and egress issue. So that's kind of what we're here to start to talk about. And Peter, if you have a comment.
Just a comment, as far as locally, land use ordinances are something that can be developed locally. So as an example, we do have some ordinances as far as new construction that addresses pole issues, which says any new development needs to have underground utilities, and that eliminates the poles. I wonder for Fred if in fact CMP has any type of plans for incentives for either promoting that as far as local governments putting together ordinances to incentivize builders to put in more underground rather than poles.
So the planning function at the right now, I'm not aware of anything that incentivizes a builder or a developer to do that. There are a lot of pros and cons with underground and above ground. Some are surprising. Things that impact the cost of underground are obviously granite, ledge, the material, the basing of the road. You know, you can't just lay the cable down the side of the road and have it be okay. So you need a lot of infrastructure that adds to the cost of that subdivision or to that property or to that space. Maintenance on underground is very, very expensive. It's not, what's the word I'm looking for? It's not perfect. It still has outages, it has shorts, it has faults. There are things that can go wrong. So there's currently nothing that really incentivizes underground. I know you and I talked, 18 months ago about looking at a grant program for a couple of, I believe it was the BRIC grant program that we talked about, that could potentially explore underground for a grant process through Cumberland County EMA that would come to the town of Raymond of federal money or whatever who wanted to partner. But the thresholds and the cost of that often exceeds the value of the grant available, and it places a burden back on there. So there is a trade-off there.
I understand that. It's just that my understanding is what Central Maine Power is doing now is spending a lot of money basically replacing poles, fortifying poles. Well, the weather basically seems to be, at least in my experience over the last 5 or 10 years, the amount of wind that we're having. So it's not just rain and flooding and fires. It's just the blowdown that's created from wind and the power lines being taken down by wind. No, I guess what I'm saying is that if you want to think about something locally that could be done, building ordinances, land use ordinances is something that the community.
Each association can adopt what you're saying on their own choice. Each local association can try to underground drop there and charge more in the HOA to do that. While the association can put their power all on the ground in there and charge the HOA more money to do that. But that's not Central Maine Power. Central Maine Power is bringing you power. They brought it to your road. It's up to you now to get it to your house.
It is a very dynamic situation, right? Because how do you determine who gets the incentives for the underground? What area do they go to? Why would a ratepayer that's on the tip of Moosehead Lake or down to Waldo County or Belfast or Kittery, why would they subsidize a community that's in another location? So it is a very dynamic, and nobody likes their rates to go up, right?
Right. Yeah, I understand all. I guess all I'm saying is that if I understand what you're saying is that it's really driven by the financials. So if it got to the tipping point where it costs more money for Central Maine Power to be putting up poles, rather than offset that cost by putting it underground, you would be incentivized to put it underground.
Anything done underground is borne by the cost of the homeowner, not CMP.
Right. There's a challenge there. And I think that your point is noted that, it is a balance between rate of return, the number of people that could be impacted. We could, and one of the things I was jotting down, I was writing my notes from the presentation I had, but, some of the things to just kind of keep in mind that we are doing is we are putting in reinforced power lines, what we call tree wire. All right. And I'll stand up so people can see me if that's all right. Tree wire is basically a reinforced conduit that is more resistive to breaking. It's thicker, it's stronger. But because it's a heavier wire, it means we need to decrease the span between our poles, right? So it's an engineering thing. And then you have heavier snow loads because it's a thicker wire. So everything kind of spirals into a scenario, but we are committed to the tree wire in certain locations where it goes. The other thing that we're doing is we're moving to a reinforced pole. A lot of our transmission poles now, we're actually going to steel. And part of this is driven by a cost savings, by a longevity device, but also because of climate change, right? We're seeing a lot of climate change that is occurring. We're seeing new insects migrate here. We've had the ash wood borer. I mean, all these different things these insects are coming up. We're seeing more woodpeckers into the state. All of these things that are going to start influencing the service center as a whole, are going to change the way we do business over time. And we are looking at that type of information. Animal guards, big cause of outage. We actually put basically like a Frisbee on the end of a wire to stop the squirrel. and to protect it, and it makes an incredible difference. We've done a bunch of pilot programs with these animal guards, and now they're becoming norm. As we recreate a line, or if we start having a significant number of outages, you'll see us putting up animal guards in these locations to minimize the number of times that we have an outage. Automation is a big thing we're investing in, Cumberland and York County. The ability to redirect the flow of electricity around an outage is something we're really working on. A smart system or an intelligent grid makes a big difference in how long you're without power. And it's tough on a single dead-end loop like Raymond Cape is, I'll be honest with you, but if you have an area that we can backfeed or change the direction of that electricity, then we're working towards improving that intelligence and also getting more precise notification of where that outage is. And that helps us respond accordingly and address things. So we are doing a lot of things in addition to our veg management. The debate that goes on, though, about above ground or underground and the cost and who pays and how it works is one that I think will be going on for decades to come around that. Even the burying of transmission lines is being explored in other parts of the country. And in some cases, you think the cost outweighs the benefit, but a short period of time later, for whatever happens in the world, there's a short. Now you got to go back out. You got to redisturb that ground. You have to dig it up versus pulling up with a bucket truck, taking the pole, changing it out. So right now it's a fine line, but we do look at both. We encourage both. The opportunity is there for a developer to do both, and a subdivision, as I don't know who was mentioning that, but as a subdivision or a homeowners association, you can certainly elect to drop the feed that's going to your house and bury it underground. As a homeowner, you have the right to drop the feed that goes from the pole all the way underground and have it come up underground in your property. You can contract with an electrician to do that who will know the right people. The piece to remember is the power has to get to you first. And I think that's one of the, if I can go for just a second, is that all right? That's one of the things you need to understand about veg management. Just a couple of things, to keep in mind is that our service center is 11,000 square miles that Central Maine Power maintains, 670,000 plus customers. We have 25,000 miles of line that we manage throughout the state of Maine, which is all well and good. And we appreciate everybody's support for that. The vegetation management system that our arborists manage throughout the state is a 6-year cycle. And we're looking to shrink that down even more when the current rate cases have been filed. And we won't get into that whole debate because we could be on both sides and be here all night. But tree trimming is a big thing. Actually, give me just 1 second here with my hand. I should have given you these slides, I guess, Bruce. But 41% of non-storm related outages are caused by trees. Over 94% of these trees that cause these outages are outside of our right of way. So again, we're coming back to a point where it's the homeowner's property. In the state of Maine, you have the ability as a community to say no tree cutting in our town. We have communities that do that. You have a right as a neighborhood to say no tree cutting in our neighborhood. You have the right to say as a homeowner at times, no cutting in front of my house. So you could clear Raymond Cape all the way down to the bottom. And if that first lot says, I'm not cutting down that tree, then that tree is the hazard and that tree falls. It breaks the chain, right? It's like water. It has to come from somewhere. You can have a perfect lineup. All of Raymond Cape can be good, but if the substation's down, then you're going to have trouble. So it is a very complex system. It's a balanced system. I've been on Bruce's side of life in my previous career. I know your pain as a homeowner. I know the pain of the citizens, but it is a very complex and challenging problem that we have. And what we're finding across the country is that the livelihood of our communities, the lifeblood of our communities is electricity. And that's a tall order, right? Because we have people that work at home now. We have people that are working remote and need internet. They need power to run that internet. We have people that are working around the globe in a different part of the world that are working in our communities in the state of Maine. And so that dependency on power is something that we are very aggressive about restoring power on. We try to meet our metrics that we're required by the state of Maine for what we call blue sky outages, trees on lines, power outages, stuff like that. But even in storm, we have performance standards that we try to meet and exceed. And it's tough. It's getting tougher and tougher because there's a limited supply of qualified linemen in the country, just like there's a limited supply of paramedics and EMTs and police officers and people who work in a bank or whatever it might be. we're in the same thing as linemen. And so these linemen that we hire in a storm, they come from as far away as Kentucky, Ohio, Minnesota, wherever they come from. And so when we commit to that, or we're sure we're getting a storm, we're spending a lot of energy and a lot of effort and a lot of money of not only the ratepayers' money, but also Central Maine Power stockholders' money, because it's tiered how that reimbursement piece works. Everyone has a fight in the game, but it is not a simple thing to get the lights turned back on or protect them from going out. So, and I'm happy to take any questions that people.
Right away, say that you have the right to cut trees down in your right of way. What is the distance from the right to left of the pole that is considered CMP property?
So that's the amazing thing, is it depends on the roadway itself. The center line of the roadway, it can be as little as 12 feet if it's a small path or a small road, or it could be as much as 50 feet in a newer subdivision. So it's all
Cape Road.
I don't know for a fact. I'm willing to look, but I bet it varies as that road goes down through and how things were developed. And as we go through these properties, we cut as much as we can over secondary lines. All right, so there's two groupings of power. We'll keep it really simple. There's the high voltage of the primary that sits on top of the pole, and then there's the secondary lines that are closer down but above the communications lines. Those secondary lines, we're 8 feet left and right and 15 feet above, okay? If it's a three-phase or higher or primary line, we've now implemented ground to sky clearing. So we'll go to the edge of our right of way and there'll be nothing above that in most cases for our high voltage and transmission lines. If it's that gap in between where it's one phase or two phase or a primary that's coming through, which is probably what you have down in the Cape is, you probably start with 3 and then go to 1 and then it just drops down to secondary. In that case, it's 15 feet above. So it varies. We try, I think, as the Forest Service says, Maine is a great state. Its beauty is its vegetation and is its trees, and nobody likes to clear cut and get everything cleaned up. But so we're setting a priority where we'll do that advanced tree management. If it's a bulk transmission line, if it's a large feed going into a large subdivision, neighborhood, whatever it might be, or a commercial occupancy. And as the voltage scales down, we'll scale down on that trimming to maintain that community type of feel is what we'll do. So.
Line that you notice, you cross 15, you usually set the track out, take care of it.
We do. We try our best to get out within a day or two at most, sometimes even quicker. Yeah, definitely.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Something that came up a little bit ago, and I want to get to that because I know we want to answer to it, but was pertinent to the lake and its natural resource of our water supply and what a fire's effect may be on that water supply. Hence, we have representation from the water district here, and I'd actually like to hand the mic over to see if you look at that particular issues. Thank you.
Sure. I don't know a lot about fire. And I don't know a lot about power, but I know some things about water. So to give a little perspective on this, I looked up the 1947 fire. I looked up what the lake level was at the time of that fire, and the lake was 15 feet lower than it is today. So we're in a drought, but we're not in a really bad drought. So back in 47, it was dry for years and years and years. We've been, we had a wet May and June. It rained about every weekend. The streams are dry now, but it's not as dry as the 40s were, when the lake was 15 feet lower. One of the other things that I thought about was when you're trying to put out a fire, one thing that would bother the lake and the drinking water would be the foam, the PFAS foam. That stuff is bad. So those, yeah. So, a lot of departments are getting rid of it. But that PFAS has been really bad, for the water resources. So yeah, those are my two things. Thanks.
At the water level, being so high right now, affects the leaching of the phosphorus and the nitrogen and stuff into the water level? Do you think if it was standing there that you have filtration allowing the phosphorus and stuff to absorb into the sands faster? Are these higher water levels actually good for what's going on?
No, actually, the drier weather is good because it doesn't allow all the stormwater to wash all the nutrients into the lake. So generally, when we have drier conditions, there's less nutrients getting washed in from erosion effects and nutrient effects like that.
What about being lower, would it give time for those nutrients to absorb into the sand and into the soil?
Yeah, so
There's no place for it to go except for in the water.
yeah, so the
At water level. And at a place to be, would it help?
I mean, the sand has some interaction with the lake level when it goes into the sand. There is some bacterial decomposition in that sand layer, but the bigger thing is the stormwater runoff is the biggest thing.
And you bring up PFAS, and I hear the chief say, we don't use that anymore in our firefighting, but chief, we do have it stored.
I do have stored.
In the town.
Yeah, waiting for funding.
Waiting for funding in order for the state to have some sort of determination of what to do with it.
Correct.
So that we don't end up with what happened at the air base.
Yeah.
Where it was storing it
Yeah.
and it got out.
Yeah, and actually, in some stations, some firefighting stations, they use the foam on the forestry kits. You know, they may have a 4-wheel drive vehicle with foam because it's lighter than the water. So that would be a problem.
Thank you. Thank you. So we talked a little bit earlier about some volunteer opportunities for people to kind of help out and coordinate things. And I'd like to turn the mic over to Michael Durkin again so he can chat about different groups and availability to work within those groups. Thank you.
Absolutely. So I figured I was chatting with Bruce. I was kind of listening to all the different concerns people have, and I thought I'd make an offer as the county as for maybe a way we could potentially help, or really, it's with that classic, I'll help you help yourself sort of deal. The county operates what are called community or emergency response teams, or CERT teams. They tend to be geographically based. They're not first responders, so you don't have to be a volunteer firefighter. You don't have to be an EMT, nothing like that. They are average citizens that we train to perform certain specialized roles in disaster, right? It could be these are the people who go out after a storm and take photos and help us assess damage. These are the people who maybe they just agree to check on their neighbors in a storm, right? It really varies a great deal. Every CERT team can be very different. At the county level, we're training our first CERT team in, I think, about 2 or 3 weeks. And that's going to be kind of a county-wide one. However, there could be a Raymond Cape CERT team that is geographically based and focused. And I would argue that because of the unique needs and hazards you all are seeing, mixed with the passion I'm hearing in the room, I think you all would be a really good candidate for one. If you wanted to form one, it's completely up to you, of course. All we need is a group of interested people. And then at the county level, we'd be happy to train you and equip you and for whatever that need is, essentially. And it'd be a discussion probably between us, and we'll keep Chief involved. Why not? And you all to figure out what is the biggest need. You know, if it's, as he says, kind of that team to help evacuate and direct traffic with, vests and flashlights, we'll get you vests and flashlights. That's not a big deal. If it's, you want to, learn to do the home fire assessments and provide that service to your neighbors of, hey, you need to, trim the limbs up this high, you need to push the debris back that far and that sort of stuff. Whatever it is, we can figure out what those kind of specialized, unique needs are. So if folks are interested in that as a potential option, I think you all would be a really good candidate for it. Let me know after the fact and I'll connect you. I don't actually run the program, but I'll connect you to the person who does. I mean, I oversee the program, so I can commit myself to it, but yeah.
Notebook to want to sign up with their phone number and email when you got back.
Sure. Yeah, I'd be happy to.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that would be great. And like I said, there's a lot of things we can do. And there's a lot of other things we can do with some detailed training as well, with kind of like with the department. So we can get into those things. If people think there's a need, obviously reach out to us and we'll get you pointed in the right direction. So that was It says that. Now, we've addressed all these. I want to have Dennis say a few words real quick as a selectman, and then I want to wrap it up and come back around to see that we've addressed everything and hear from the people here that asked us to address these, and then I want to set some goals, if it's possible, based on what we've chatted about. These may not be pertinent anymore. We may have a whole new list to write out. So, but Dennis, if you'd like to speak for that.
I'm not going to stand up though. We do have a grant going on involving resilience. Peter would probably know more about it, but John Rand was really a couple of the people that brought it in, and it's all about this sort of thing: erosion control. This issue was brought up at the time. I think Brad raised an issue. He may have been at that meeting, and so we really need to be proactive as opposed to reactive. And believe me, we've had some really strange things in this town. One that wasn't mentioned was the ice storm. And anyone who was here knew it was hell. You know, it was not warm. It was very cold. And we've had all kinds of things like that that have gone strange in the town, rollovers of an oil truck on Valley Road down in that area. So it isn't just this. But I said, when I went down there and I told the chief, I said, when I get around to buying the land I'm on now, it's 4 acres. I cut a path all the way around my perimeter. And it started out as a bike path for my future grandkids. And I've widened it now to be a access for a fire truck. And believe it or not, I didn't have to take many trees. All I had to do was weave it within 5 or 10 feet of the property line. And it stays attractive. And we're able to go out there. And then I hired my garden tree to come in and take all the dead trees out, because there's been so much damage that's happened. Now, everyone can't do this, but I've been 10 years doing it. And I know how far down the Cape Road I am. And I also, the reason I'm talking about this is I'm not just a selectman. I'm a person who lives here and has been here a long time. You have to have skin in the game. And I decided 4.5 miles down where the road narrows should be a place for the fireboat to come in on the dock over there. Should be a place to be able to put a hydrant in, as John said earlier. And it is the narrowest point. And so the other thing I figured out is if the fire was burning and it was coming my way, I could down Fry Island and get on the ferry. So you got to think for yourself. You just can't always think that you're going to go out and fight the way out. The last storm we had, my son had a couple chainsaws, and I had my plow truck, and we knew it was going to lit up by 7:30. So we went out at 4:30 in the morning. We just cut off the top of the trees all the way out to the Cape Road. I pushed them off with the plow of my truck. And so we got all the way out and someone was cutting the way in. We were the first road to have CMP in, because by the time we went out and back, a truck could get down in there. In fact, fire truck got stuck down there. Just a little humor in what we try to do. But if we don't do that, if we don't have skin in the game, if you don't have time to take care of your own place, you see what the staffing was here. And the town doesn't have unlimited resources to staff this station with more people, and we don't have the resources to be the solution for everyone. But our goal, at least this board now, is to combine public and private. Whether it's, again, going down to do a size up, whether it's someone who says that I have 12 clients, I've had them all widen the driveway. You know, and White's Pine, when I was chief, I think it was White's Pine, I went down in there for EMS call, and I said, these pine trees are so beautiful. Too bad we couldn't get the fire truck down through there. And those little points no one thinks about when you're driving down a beautiful driveway. And so those are the common sense things that people could come, and the gentleman asked what I forgot what the question was, what we do about pamphlets or handouts or whatever that was as a select board. I think that's what the talk was. Here's my opinion. The sign out there runs through 6 different messages with boards and everything else. The old-fashioned Smoky had a little sign that stayed there. It's an old-fashioned thing that we could put at the Hawthorne House if that was a concern. We could put it at the park. And, you know, everywhere you can, especially now, little things like that don't cost a lot, and it sends the message. So all we're looking for is some common sense, some skin in the game, and really to understand the dangers here are much more realistic, including flooding. We're not talking about flooding here. You know, they've got it everywhere. I think New Hampshire, Vermont was wasteland for a little while. We don't have a straightaway that's longer than I don't know, quarter of a mile, and we don't have a place in this town that isn't on a hill. I mean, except for 302, and they leveled that all off through the swamp. But the reality is, think about that, where you are. You know what I did right away when I bought my place? I called Paul Lawrence and then Nathan. And I said, I have to do some work around the lake. What can I do? And that's where I started. And from there, it's grown. And so the board's here to help, but we're not here to do it all. And I think really simple things like the Smokey the Bear. And I know a few of these guys from Fire Island. When I was out there, I'll tell you, we talked a lot about what we could do and not do. Don't think it's only one way out. You can leave your car. And by the way, just beyond Fry Island, there's a big area that they bought from one of the developers down there. You could park your car there and run over and get on a ferry if the place was burning down. You could take more people on that ferry than you can cars.
Want to stir that pot?
Doesn't matter, I did. Eric.
Tell the people from Fire Island, I'm gonna stop parking over there as soon as you do it.
Well, if there's a fire,
If there's a fire, it'd be a whole different scenario. So, have we addressed everybody's concerns that we first wrote down or questions? Do you think? Yes, sir.
Just one question,
Yes.
mutual aid.
Oh, yeah.
What, resources are available for your support for a forest fire?
Okay, so there's a couple different things that are available, and one of them is drone observation. We have a couple members that are licensed pilots, but we have a neighboring fire chief who has his own setup and is a pilot for that. So we have that for kind of recon stuff. We have to be very, very careful with that, and I urge people not to fly their drones privately if there's a fire and we're flying helicopters and airplanes. It's definitely in the way and dangerous of those aircraft. The State Forest Service, I should just hand you the mic. You know what you have for aircraft that I don't want to misquote. So
we have about 4 forest ranger pilots, and that means 1 or 2, maybe 3 of them are on at any given time. And what we do is we monitor the dryness and the amount of fire activity in the state. And if there's a bunch of fires in Aroostook County, we're probably going to have 2 helicopters up there and keep 1 in Augusta. If they're having a bunch of fires down here, then we're going to have 2 down here. So we have to adjust based on where the fire activity is and the weather and all that stuff.
So we have 3 helicopters total.
We have about 6, but they're not all available at once. So I would say 4 is a good number. We have airplanes too, but you want a helicopter that can drop water. So
airplanes that can drop water.
We don't. That's more of a Western thing. Okay, there's not any what they call the scoopers on the East Coast, except for in Quebec. Okay, those are generally not used on the East Coast. Okay, that's something that's done out west and in the South. Having said that, there's a Type 1 helicopter that's staged in Lebanon, New Hampshire right now, that was put there by the U.S. Forest Service that is the same type that's used on the big fires. So it just depends on a national basis where the fires are, what equipment you will get. But I don't think you're going to get a big air tanker coming to a fire in Maine. We can do a lot with our helicopters, but they don't do everything. You still need boots on the ground. They can knock down a fire so the firefighters can get in safely and start dealing with it, but they don't put everything out. So good questions.
Belong to the Northeast Compact.
Yeah, we have mutual aid. If we had something big, we would get those, they're called CL 415 air tankers. We could get those down if they weren't busy. So we certainly are on top of that, but it's not common to have those big tankers on the East Coast.
Yes, ma'am.
I want to get back to the emergency response.
Yes.
If there were an active forest fire on the Cape that stranded, maybe 1 person, maybe 100 people, where, the forest fire's here and they're on this side of it.
Yeah.
In that situation, God forbid that would ever happen.
Mm-hmm.
What type of resources would be available to the town of Raymond to be able to access those people? Would it be boat from coming in? Would it be helicopters
It-
to get those people basically out of the line of fire?
It likely wouldn't be helicopters for a rescue unless we get a large enough LZ landing zone in that area that we could actually safely get into. However,
Areas that have been cleared or that property owners have that would be safe landing spots on the Cape anywhere?
yeah, we're Raymond Beach or middle of Roosevelt Trail, but they're not where you're talking. So, in the I guess the unfortunate and unlikely, I'm going to say that event that may occur and there was no way for you to get out. If you can get to the water, obviously, even in April, the water's super cold, but it becomes a fight or flight is what we call it scenario where you actually have to make a decision. Let us know. We will do our absolute best to get to somebody, but you also do have to engage that fight or flight mechanism and make a decision. Do I stay? Do I go? Do I have some people have taken action, and Dennis has skin in the game. So Camp Slavinsky is a great example of this, and I'm going to throw this out there, but they installed on the island that they're on at their property line a well. This is kind of extreme. A well, a pump, and a sprinkler line that is fed all summer long as soon as it's above freezing, and they don't drain it until we hit the freezing marks again. And he can remotely or manually turn that set of, I think it's 14, 15, the sprinklers that, go around like that, I guess, and make that noise as they go. I don't know what you call them specifically. They're just a sprinkler. They're that high off the ground on the pipe mounted. And that was to protect that camp from a wildfire from the other end of the island. The same thing can be achieved with a sprinkler system. Of course, by now I've called Fred and we've disconnected power because we have a forest fire endangering lines and dropping lines on our people. But you have generators, a lot of people do. So we could think outside the box and kind of think of what we can do to make ourselves more resilient. I mean, it's really thinking outside of that. I mean, it may never happen. You're prepping for something that may never happen. We hope. So
You have certain rallying points. I mean, like.
Yeah, so
Camp.
yeah, I mean, getting to a boat, getting out on the water and things like that. And what we can do is develop points like that. So I'm coming back around to it, and up where my old camp was, we had kind of medevac sites. This is what I'm thinking. And that was an area that if there was an emergency, not only would you go to get a medevac helicopter, but you also would go to get away from a fire or whatever. That was a safe zone that they created for multitudes of different things. So it may work. Yeah, a unification, reunification type, or evac, whatever you want to call it. And maybe, I don't know where you are, but if maybe you're closest to the ferry landing. It may be you jump on that ferry, you go across to the island, and maybe you're on this end and the fire's on the other end and you're going to come up. It may be that you have to make that decision to go out on foot. Maybe the road's compromised. And I can't advocate any one of those. It's situational to the point where you have to make that best decision for yourself. And I'm sorry, I can't identify it any more than that. But when we get to a point in time, the fire's encroaching, I've got no way out. I have to make that decision on my own. I'm going to live or I'm going to die. And I hate to put it that way, but that's the reality of that if it's that bad. Now we can put together plans to try to evacuate and things like that. We get notification out there. Let's hope we never get a fire that big. We talk a lot about California. The Paradise fires were horrible. We had fires in Tennessee that were horrific and burned half of Gatlinburg. And it could happen. Maine burned before. We know that. It could happen. But with today's notification systems and quick response and things like that, other than the extreme, like this drought that we're still in, and I guess a high wind and what have you, and someone being dumb and lighting a fire, I don't think it's going to happen. I hope I'm not jinxing myself. I really do, but I really hope it wouldn't happen. I think everybody's heightened enough to know to report it quickly if they see, smell anything. A lot of cities and towns around it getting an absolute ton of calls to go out and there's smoke in there. I just did one the other day. I had a neighbor call went in on my road just the other day, and 2 a.m, we're running around looking for, and it's a campfire. So, but that's what we have to do to good fire, bad fire and decide that. So I'm hoping I'm answering your question and I may not be. There's no real great answer for that, and sorry, right in the back row, we had one. Yeah.
What if we were all to pedal our feet down to the ferry landing? That's our place to exit.
Yep.
Because we're blocked off. Do we have arrangements with the ferry to utilize that as a passenger transport to get off that?
I'll make one phone call to the right person and things will start happening and we will make it happen. In an emergency, in winter, we're talking about a different scenario altogether. The ferries don't run and we're totally a different scenario. Yeah, different altogether. So,
Power shut down.
yeah, power shut down on the island a lot of times in the winter just because it goes out. CMP doesn't prioritize that as high when there's nobody out there. So yeah, there's a bunch of different scenarios we deal with. Yeah. Well, we've had several out on the Cape. Yeah, we had a woods fire on the Cape this year for sure, and it was 1.5 acres is what it got to. It had actually been burning all day, and it was only when it got dark. It was in end of April, beginning of May, and it was when it got dark. And we were out on. Here's the scenario: we were out on 2 rescue calls, so there's no crew here. Mutual aid had to send a crew in. They only had 2 people, so 2 people are coming to get on Lombard Road. And we get this fire and the neighboring people could see it. I believe we have someone from the camp next door online right now. And oh, by the way, well, I'm going to interrupt right now. Say anybody at home watching on Zoom, please, if you have a question, raise your hand online and we'll see it. So thank you. And anyways, we had this fire and it consumed a lot of resources because nobody was around. We were all at the hospital with all our crews. I was out of town coming back and I was 30 minutes into it before I could get there. So that's the reality of what happens sometimes. And that was only seen because it was nighttime. And that's when someone could see it out their window. So, sure, yes.
I was just gonna say that the military classifies the landing zone, they call it LZ.
Yeah.
100 by 100.
100 by 100,
area,
yeah.
So that a helicopter can get down there.
Correct.
Not hit branches of trees, so they can get up and in there safely.
Yes.
So people that have property on Raymond Cape, they have enough area that they could open up an area that's 100 by 100. A helicopter could get in. Your own info. I'm sure there's numerous locations that could have throughout Raymond Cape, but they have to be known, they have to be maintained. Right. They can't have any, trees in the way, branches.
Yeah. And you just can't cut a 100 by 100 square out of 100-foot tall pine trees because they need to have an approach. They don't come in and just straight up and down it either all the time. So anyway, yeah. So yes, that
you might want to mention to people why one rain is not enough.
One
rain.
Oh God, yeah. I mean, if we're going to talk about the fire danger right now, where we're at in this drought, and this maybe up to 4/10, maybe a half an inch that we're going to get overnight tonight, is supposed to still fall very fast, I believe, and move out very, very fast. Not allowing a lot of time for it to soak in. It's really not going to do a whole lot. And I was talking with some friends and Lieutenant who's on duty tonight in the back. He's from Canton area, and a rain that you get. We had that 2 weeks ago, and it wet like that much of the soil. Everything under it was dust. So when you burn a pile of brush, any of the root matter and duff matter that's underneath can hold that heat and it can travel in the roots and stay there. They've had several fires up in that area already this year. We've been fortunate and we haven't, and I think it's because a long time ago when Dennis was chief, we started that process of really regulating our open burning so that we didn't have a lot of these issues. And we promoted chipping, and hauling the brush to the dump was one of the big ones when we had the dump. So it helped us a lot.
My question has to do with the with drought conditions, and drought conditions like what we're having now increase the depth at which burn can continue.
Yes. In short, yes. Everything underneath is dry and the materials die, and there's material in sand even that can burn. And kind of alluded a little bit to it, but root structures can burn and carry the fire to, 50, 100 feet in certain conditions and pop up on the other side of our parking lot from where I'm standing, if you will. It can happen days and days later. And I'll think back to a call we had on Notched Pond years ago when I was in New Gloucester. That very thing happened. The burning permit was issued like on a Monday, for example, and on Friday we're getting called for a woods fire. Wasn't really much of a fire, but I'm standing there looking at a spot in front of me that's turning black by the second and starting to smoke. And I look over there, and 100 feet away, there's a spot turning black and starting to smoke. And I'm like, we spent days there digging and grubbing that very material out of the ground. It was that dry at that year. It was similar to what we have this year. So yes, it can perpetuate that, it can make it burn even more or be higher risk. So that's why, like I said earlier, we went online today, and despite the little bit of rain we're going to get, I blocked all permits at least until the 17th of the month. So there'll be no burning permit required permits. So that's anything bigger than that 3 foot by 3 foot. We haven't done the campfires yet, and we find that, yes, there's a lot of them, but this time of year, there's a lot less. So it's less of a risk. And those who have been here and have appropriate equipment for campfires, kettles, or what have you, rock-lined pits, do very well with them, and aren't much of a risk, if you will. So, yes, sir.
If you dig out a certain number of feet of soil and roots and put gravel or some other fire-resistant material, is that as effective as a stone wall around it, or what are the recommendations?
I absolutely advocate for that, for sure. But this is one of those maintenance things, and if you want to add in, please say something. But it's one of those maintenance things. So 10 years down the road, 5 years down the road, roots have grown into it, and you're dealing with that same stuff. So it's kind of the same scenario. And just this spring, not knowing we were going to have a dry summer, at my camp, I dug out both of my fire pits, the water side and the other side, and we redid that gravel. And it was just 5 years ago we did it, and I said, hey, it's time, let's dig it out, clean it up, and so we found a lot of roots in it, for example. So that's why it's important to maintain that. So yes, sir.
Ideally, how many days of a continuous soaking rain do we need to get out?
Are we down like 7 inches now, aren't we? Maybe 8. That you don't know what the drought.
It's a lot.
6 inches down right now. If we don't want 6 inches of rain to fall overnight or even 2 days, if it was spread out 4 or 5, maybe 6, 7, and drizzly is the best. Drizzly is awesome. And it's horrible for us because it's cloudy, it's miserable, we'll all complain when it happens, be honest, we're from Maine. Black flies hatch, we complain, even though summer's coming. So yes, it will take a long time to get that rain, the water levels back. So Brad, yes, sir.
Says quick points here.
Yeah.
Just run through the points and then we can address them.
The first one is we have a couple of people here from Deep Cove Shores, and we haven't really talked about that. And I think whatever you could do to just address that. Secondly, the need for volunteers is a big part of this meeting. And I think if you could get a show of hands of who's interested in volunteering, and as I say, I have a notebook here. I'm happy to put it up back for people to leave their name, a phone number, and an email address. And maybe you could poll on who would be interested in having another meeting here to do that. I think the follow-up to this is very important. And then the third one has to do with fire hoses. I didn't realize the danger of driving over a fire hose to your department. And I think if one of you could just discuss that, because with one way in and out, fire hoses could be an issue. And then finally, some of you may be aware, we have some residents on Raymond Cape who were victims of the California wildfires earlier this year. Their home was burned to the ground, and I'd rather not mention their names, but it was a terrible situation, and they were fortunate to have this place they could come up to. But he raised some very interesting points I'd like to share with everyone tonight about the fire coming and disbelief that it could come to them, and then what they've uncovered about insurance after the fact. I think, very noteworthy points. So if you could just give me a couple of minutes to share part of that. Oh, you want me to read that?
Absolutely.
Sure. I think the biggest part here, excuse me just a second, I have an alarm going off here, not one of your alarms, just. All right. Yeah. The first was the disbelief that the fire, they could see the fire, you know, a couple of miles away from their home, but they did not think it would come to them. They had done everything in the neighborhood that you should do to remove brush from around their house. That fire was a crown type fire that was coming down from above and went from home to home to home. And I'm not trying to get into a discussion of why it was or why it couldn't be here, so much as they just didn't think it was going to happen. They said, you know, they evacuated their home thinking they would be back the next day, and they came back the next day and it was just leveled. And they sent me a photograph of the gate up there and no home, and it was just really eerie with the smoke coming from it. What they said more than anything is we wished we had grabbed our photo albums, because all of the family photos, wedding photos, or had them digitized, and they did not. And the other lesson he said was about insurance. And a couple of points on that. Number one, if you're responsible for the fire, it probably will wipe you out, because all of your neighbors who you're good friends with are going to suffer tremendous damages, and in likelihood, there's not enough insurance to protect you if you were the cause of that fire. And I think it gets back to what you were saying about the prevention of that. If you're doing the necessary things, it is more difficult to hold somebody responsible than if you haven't been doing the necessary things. He, by the way, is an attorney, very successful attorney out in California. But he said, after a fire, your policy is your lifeline. Many people discover too late that their coverage doesn't match today's rebuilding costs. And they had a very expensive home in California. I think probably there are a few homes in the state of Maine that would approach the price of theirs. I read that as many as 70% of the fire victims in their area were underinsured, 70% underinsured. Construction prices soar. You have to kind of keep this in mind. If Raymond Cape were wiped out, every contractor within 100 miles of here is going to be getting a call. Every architect, every engineer, every removal service to remove all the debris. Some of it may be hazardous and require special around the lake, and it's just going to take a lot of money. So you need to make sure that your insurance covers that. The other part of this, building codes change. Suddenly you're underinsured. My advice is simple: review your policy every year. Make sure it covers full replacement, including enough living expenses to keep you housed while you rebuild, and reflects the real cost of construction today, not 10 years or more ago. We were lucky our policy provided for guaranteed, so forth. But I just wanted to share that. We don't think about the insurance and the after effects of a fire, and just.
Hey, Bruce, can I just chime in real quick on the insurance side of this?
Yes.
So over the last 3 or 4 years here at Maine, or just across the country, we've had a significant inflation.
No, that's fine. So the last 3 or 4 years, obviously, we've seen a significant inflation. So your own policies here in Maine, if they have not been reviewed in the last 4 or 5 years, are not where they're supposed to be. We don't want to pay more, but you also don't want to be in the position that other folks are in anyway. So it's very important to check it out.
Yes, thank you for reinforcing that. And I was going to add to that and say, yes, we do that at our household every year. We look at everything, correct? Yep. Anyways, so a couple good points there. These are all things that should just be out there for information anyways. Any other questions, concerns before we kind of do a wrap up? I mean, sorry?
Deep Cove Shores?
Yeah, the Deep Cove Shores. Anything particular concern of Deep Cove? And we were in the same boat down there. So absolutely.
Lots of the top of the road, near the road 302.
Okay.
There's 2 lots.
Yeah.
And I think you know where they were. Dead,
Yep.
the trees.
Yeah.
It's
Oh, yeah.
terrible. I mean, it's just horrible. And the owners on the lake do not own that land.
Right.
The family that owns all the land on DP, they're the ones that own it.
Right.
So I think it's a terrible fire hazard. I mean, it's.
Is it on the same side that was
Mason and
thinned a few
Wilson's,
years?
right, yeah.
Okay, on the other side.
It's just.
Yeah, I mean, this is all stuff that we unfortunately don't have any control, but we have persuasive control, if you will.
Right.
That's stuff we can talk to folks about and say, if you.
People on the lake, they've talked to those people.
They have, and they won't do anything.
But it's just.
It's too bad.
It's a terrible fire hazard. I mean, it got worse after those storms in 24.
Right.
Really, I mean, just huge, but it's just.
Right, and we have had, and I think we've identified this time and again, that the winds, the heavy snows and everything have brought down so much fuel, and everything out there, it's fuel. That's what we look at it as. That's what our forests are. But we know that we can clean them up, we can chip them, maintain them, get rid of ladder fuels, move combustible things from our homes. Don't stack your firewood under your deck. That's a huge one. Don't stack it under the deck. People do it all the time. I used to do it. I don't do it anymore, but I used to. So I know people do that. It's a convenient place to store it. It's covered right by the deck. When you have a fence or fencing, wooden fencing, and you tie it into your house because you don't want the dog sneaking around, right? So you put the stockade fence right to it. Putting in a few feet of chain link or something like that is really recommended because it breaks the continuous fuels. So if the fence is burning and it's burning towards the house, you get metal. It's not going to burn so hot. It's not going to burn well at all. Hopefully it'll put the fire out or stop it.
And we do put a hydrant on deep cove. What to say?
Yeah, there is.
Here with those.
Yeah, there's a pressurized hydrant at the end. Yep, absolutely. And we have some special hazards when we look at Deep Cove because we got Sheehan's Island, and you get a bridge to go across to Sheehan's Island. And I know where the bridge came from. It's never been certified by an engineer for us to hold a fire truck. So we got problems like that. We've also got those in the area we cover in gray on Little Sebago Lake. Good bridges. I'm not putting a fire truck across the bridges down there because that one is definitely a little wobbly looking. I don't want to plant the fire truck on the bottom of the river. It goes under it. So we'll never get there.
Keep your gutters clear.
Keep your gutters clear. Yeah, that's super important. Leaf litter, pine litter off the roof. Gutters cleaned because these are things that can ignite. Put screens over your vents. If you have big gable end vents, put fine mesh screen over them to keep that ember storm from blowing into your attic. If there is a fire coming and you have to leave, close your windows. Our screens in most houses are fiberglass. They aren't metal. And you don't want those embers blowing into the house, landing on the couch. Close the glass. And there's a lot of studies out there that show us over and over again a properly prepped residential structure can survive that kind of a wildfire. There's studies and they're posted. You can watch the videos on YouTube. Jack Cohn is one of the, I guess we call him one of the premier, researchers on that very topic. The state and the National Forest Service has a bunch of that research posted, and there's tons of other people that have done it. So we know these programs really do work. If we were going to push something through as an ordinance or what have you, let's say push it through, get it adopted, would be my recommendation to do Firewise communities and try to adopt specific pieces, not in its entirety, because it's not all written for Raymond, Maine, but it is written in general for the safety of all. But you could take pieces of that, adapt it into our codes, and then have a better resilient community overall. And over the course of time, we could have a better result should we ever have a fire. I won't say it will never happen because it probably will, but.
What Firewise is the recommendation in the comprehensive plan?
Yes, it is in the comprehensive plan, and that would be the next piece to go to. Yes, the comp plan, if you haven't read it, you should peruse it. It has a lot of great material in it. So, and it kind of points us. That is the document that points this community in the future, what we need to address and how we need, might not tell us how we need to get there, but it points us in the direction we need to go. And I think that Firewise is something that we should look at adopting into ordinance or portions of it, and we'll be looking at that as a fire department. So I want to thank everybody here before we get any further, but thank you for all your input. I want to encourage anybody who has any further questions, please put your hand up and let's talk about it while we are all here. Any of the panelists have anything they want to add before? No?
I think you ought to pat yourself on the back. Explain to the town, the citizens here about the ISO report.
Yeah.
This is something that really is rare for a town. 20 years ago, we had a 10 rating, which means your home insurance policy were rated like you didn't have a fire department.
Correct.
My group lowered it down a little bit, and then this chief's group has lowered down even more, and you want to explain the process.
So
I think it's important to know we're good.
yeah, so, and this has just come up recently, so thank you for reminding me of it. But we dropped it 12 years ago to a class 4, which is amazing in a town this size with a small fire department. So a lot of your insurance rates should or could, depends on what company they are, have seen a reduction in their rates. Particularly though, your commercial structures really would see that benefit. 12 years has gone by and hey, we're right back at ISO re-rating time right now. So we are just starting all that process over again. I'm hoping we at least maintain, if not drop again. Somebody made a comment recently that they wished our ISO would go up closer to a 10 because when it went to a 4, and we don't know why we got there, my insurance rates went through the roof. And I went, no, you don't understand how it works. So I've been chatting with this person, and they do live in Raymond, even though they had a Facebook page from out of state. That's okay. We're working on it. I just advocated to them. I said, check with your insurer and see if there's a different policy or carrier that you can get put under that may save you some money. I do that. We check every year or two. We may change companies within the vendor. And it makes sense to do that and make sure that you're insured appropriately for what you have. So we did that, and I'm hoping that we can drop again. We have more staff now today, full-time, than we had when we went through that re-rating. When we went through that one, we had 2 people on 24/7. And now we have most days 4, 24/7. And then you've got the influx of the chiefs during the day, during different days of the week. So that adds to our staffing levels. And with the student program that we have, that's a great benefit. And then, of course, we have a handful of very dedicated volunteer members that are still out there and doing it, coming out at 2 a.m., whatever it might be, to help us out when we need it. So it's really helped out a lot getting that rating down there. So we're hoping to keep it there. John.
Hey, Dennis brought up a good point, the ISO rating. So the ISO rating, if I'm not mistaken, was related to all the dry hydrants, the point I brought up before. So how's that going to work without the dry hydrants being in place and working with our ISO ratings? Because it's a range for the insurance companies, the hydrant being the distance from the house, and your insurance is based on that.
So partly true, yes, not completely. So they never rated any of our dry hydrants except for the ones that were in the lake because they're the only ones that are hydrologist certified. None of the others are unless they're a tank in a subdivision. So Rosewood, Abbey Lane, all those would have a tank.
Got a list of those?
Yeah. A list of everything because we maintain them every year. We back flush them every year. We hydrant test them every year, and that gets done twice a year, fall and spring. We won't do it this fall because most of them don't have water in them.
Most of the Cape, for instance, Cape Road and Castle Raymond Line, where that dry hydrant is, so that affects what? Probably 150 houses and their insurance.
Yeah, I mean, it could. We can also draft right there. That's the thing. When there's not ice, we can throw a couple suction links on and get to that water. That one's fairly easy to do. And we can also take water off Roosevelt Trail where that boat launch is there. We've done that several times. That's a good supply of water.
Sure, you remember Timmy Davison's house when it burned down on Merch Landing Road.
Yeah, absolutely.
Element to help and aid with that fire. And just to me, that haven't been maintained a long time, they're very important. And it goes hand in hand what you're trying to do. And I just don't understand why we're just looking over that.
Well, I don't think we're looking over anything. As Well, as I just said, we test them twice a year, back flush them, maintain.
One at Raymond Gate.
No, because that's Casco's hydrant. I said that before,
Let
John.
me ask you this,
Yeah.
is it working right now? Could you-
No, it's not working right now. I can't hook a truck to it, as I said before. I have to put water or hose into the water.
Like,
So,
reach what's it like work? So for a few $100 to get these things serviced, I mean, why is the town of Raymond goofing around when it's right on online and you've got all these houses right here?
it's not my hydrant, John. It belongs to the town of Casco. I can't do anything with it. Yes.
Chief, we'd just be remiss if we didn't say, because it hasn't been mentioned before, that especially going into the heating season, chimney inspections, cleanings, and stove installation. I know that we now do have a requirement for any new stove being installed, be inspected by the fire department.
Correct.
And so those would be things to remind the citizens of.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
not just if you have a solid burning, but I can tell you, if you have an oil burner and it's going up that chimney, that's got to be inspected and cleaned as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Get the stuff serviced and cleaned. More of our wintertime calls are really driven by chimneys that are improperly maintained. Also, the boiler. We actually just went to one the other day that was caused by a boiler. There's a carbon monoxide issue already. It's still pretty warm out, but caused by a boiler that was malfunctioning and not burning appropriately. So yeah, that's an important piece. And make sure you get a permit for it. Yes, on the back.
Town boards, we're looking to replace your roof. You recommend metal over asbestos?
So I'm sorry, the last part I missed. Do I recommend?
Roof metal or
Well, the asphalt, yeah. I mean, either one. I mean, metal, of course, is something that will last you probably a lot longer. It's also more money. And depending the time, the type. Standing seam is a different concept than the stuff that just screws down. You can see the screws. So the standing seam, like we have on this building here, really holds up very well. And that's like a 50-year roof. Shingles nowadays are, I don't know, 15 to 20. So and the metal's going to hold up better against the fire from the outside but the asphalt is really a decent product. It's
What if my
resilient.
house is got a discount from my insurance?
Yep. Can happen. Yes.
Quickly, Bob from Zoom.
Bob from
Will
Zoom.
we be able to pick up copies of next one?
Yes, we'll have copies here. We can send it out, and actually, I could probably scan and post it or send it by email. That's what I'll do. Scan it and send it via email to them if they provide us the email. But I would happy to explore that.
Let me hit.
Yeah, and John.
So how many of you would be interested in getting this slide deck by email? Okay, a few of you. So we will arrange that. Also, we're in the process of updating our website on the town, the fire department part of it. It's actually a lot of work, but we will put this slide deck and some of the other resources up there in the next week or two.
Any other questions, comments, concerns? I mean,
Thank you very much.
Thank
Thank you very much.
thank you all for coming. We really do appreciate it. Thank you all for coming. And this is going to grow a little bit. Obviously, we've got other areas to grow it to, and we've got other areas to explore. So thank you, and we look forward to seeing you all here.